Good evening, everyone. Good evening, board members.
Good evening.
Mr. Town Manager,
Good evening.
Wendy, Janice, our clerk, and ladies and gentlemen of the audience, those watching at home. Tonight, our meeting is really just focused on the 2025 budget, but we are going to approve a couple of sets of minutes, which should not take too much time. We have, the first set of minutes are going to be the approval of the minutes of December 12th, 2024. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
And that is seconded by the chair. Are there any corrections to the last set of minutes that we got? And I know there were quite a few corrections that went into Janice. I do have some corrections that I did send to Janice that are not reflected in this set of minutes. And I'm just going to mention a few of them, not the little typos, but just a few of them. Selectman Serino asked that all hearings should be taken off the table, and so for the first one, it does not indicate that on page 1. On page 2, it said, would anybody in the audience like to come to the podium? I said to speak in favor or opposed to this application, which I say all the time. On the third, when there's a roll call vote and there's an asterisk next to yes with Selectman Riley, and then it says amended, I would suggest saying amended to no vote. And then on the next page, page 3, the second paragraph going down, just to put a little asterisk that explains that, so that, because you can't, when you read it, you don't know what this is referring to. There's an asterisk here, but not here, because it was a little bit later on in the meeting. So I think that would make it easier for the person reading it.
Yep.
On page 4, the second paragraph, the same thing, in favor or opposed to this application. Again, there's a few other typos that are in here that I already gave Janice to take a look at. So unless anybody has any other corrections to these minutes.
Just one thing, Madam Chairman. Janice, I sent you an email this afternoon. You got it? It was just that one statement, and that's it. Page 1.
All
Okay.
set? Okay, so you got my, okay, very good. So we have a motion on the floor. It was seconded. We had discussion. All those in favor of approving the minutes dated December 12th, 2023, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next, we have the minutes of December 19th, 2020. It should say 2023.
Yeah, it should say 20.
You're a little ahead of yourself. So, would somebody please make a motion to approve those minutes?
Madam Chairman, I just got one correction. On
Sure.
Gill, Janice, I don't know if you get the email.
I have that too.
Yeah, just on the Gill Oil Company, I had mentioned that, since the Conservation Commission was against the truck being there, parking of the oil truck, that I asked if the board would recommend just allowing no more than that one truck on the property.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff,
Truck in the trailer.
yeah, and Jeff included
Yes.
what I had mentioned, and that's all it said, that I had mentioned that.
Okay, and for me, I have on page 3, or would you make that in the form of a motion to
Yeah.
approve? Okay, so Michael, Selectman Serino made that in the form of a motion.
Yeah, the sentence reads, Selectmen Serino said, based on the Conservation Commission's opposition to this application because of the proximity to the Saugus River, I could only support one oil truck so long as a condition was made that no more oil trucks would be allowed on the property. And like I said, Jeff had included it in his motion. That was the statement I made, I wanted it included.
Okay, and that's seconded by the chair. I want to change on page 3, under Gill Oil, the second paragraph down, where it says Chairman Panetta asked if anyone in the audience had any further questions. I said would like to speak in favor or opposed to this application, and it's changed seating none to seeing none. The next paragraph down, where it says motion seconded by the chair, all in favor, motion passes, and then it says roll call vote, Selectman you don't need motion seconded by the chair, motion passes 5-0, because you have that in the paragraph down below. And on the page 4, the last paragraph, it says Saugus, Mass, as presented, just take out one of those. It's just little typo things. With that said, we have a motion on the floor, as seconded by the chair. We had discussion. All those in favor of approving the minutes dated December 19, 2023, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you all. Next on the agenda, we have the 2025 operating budget review and vote. As we've done in the past, I'm going to ask our town manager, Mr. Crabtree, to review the preliminary operating budget estimate for fiscal year 2025, review the letter that you sent to each one of us. Then I'm going to ask our director, treasurer, collector, Wendy, to review the sources and uses of funds. And then after that, we will go through each one of the budgets individually, and we'll stop with any questions for either the town manager or Wendy. So with that, Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So as you know, you guys have been around for quite a while. For those that haven't been, I understand this is just the beginning, very early in the process. These numbers all change as different costs come in, fixed costs and other costs, and there's a whole process through the finance committee as well. So this is sort of what they call a preliminary estimate. And in general, the budget is what they call a budget. It's estimated, even after we finalize the budget. Things change and different things happen. And as you know, we have town meetings, and Article 3's at the end to sort of make transfers when needed. So this is sort of, we've been through this before. It's putting together some estimates of what we think expenses, revenues, and different things that are going on within the town, and based on the different needs and input from the board and others. With that, you guys have had this, but I think for the purposes of people watching this and the people that are attending the meeting, I'll read through the letter. It'll take a little bit, and then we can get into the budget. But and again, this is sort of a letter that kind of outlines different expenses and different issues and drivers within the budget, and kind of explains a little bit at a higher level. Again, this was transferred to the board and transmitted to you under Article 2, Section 34 of the Saugus, Town of Saugus Charter, proposed estimated expenditure of revenue budget for the Town of Saugus for the fiscal year 2025. The total estimated expenditure budget is $117 million in change for the general fund, another $15 million in change for the water and sewer enterprise funds, for a total fiscal 2025 estimated expenditure amount of almost $133 million. Preliminary estimates of expenditures and revenues has been prepared based on FY24 local aid estimates. As you know, the final recommendations will not be available from the legislators until much later in our budget cycle, at which time we will have to revisit our revenue and expenditure estimates. The governor will likely not finalize the upcoming fiscal year budget estimates until the fall, as is usually the practice. And I think just to kind of explain that, to understand, even the state budget changes after we put our budget together, and things get changed, and I think people have probably seen, read, whatever, that there's been cuts within the
Well, they gotta
the
pay
state
for all the
budget.
illegals, so it's hard.
Correct, so
So they gotta take away from us, so they can pay for them.
So
well.
local aid and different things get cut, and those changes, hopefully, our budget, different, and people that have been around for a while, sometimes we used to have budgets that were out of balance. And our style and our methodology has been to balance the budget now, and then as things come through, we might be able to fund other things or do different things with the budget. What used to happen, and what I don't think was a great practice, and caused a lot of divisiveness, was you'd have an unbalanced budget where everybody gets whatever they want, and then you'd have to come to town meeting and make cuts, and everybody would fight with each other because you're reducing the budget rather than going with conservative estimates. And we've had years where, when that happens, you have to have a town meeting within the middle of the year to make cuts to our budget, and we've already expended, let's say, a third of the budget, or a quarter of the budget, and you have to make adjustments to the budget because you don't have, you have an appropriation issue. The estimate for the fiscal year 25 tax revenue have been calculated based on Proposition 2.5 increases on the tax levy, as well as estimates of new growth provided by the deputy assessor, the local receipts such as motor vehicle excise, local room tax, meals tax, excise, licenses and permits, fines, etc., continue to be estimates conservative. We will be reviewing the estimates as we go further through the current fiscal year in the budget process. There are challenges in preparing the estimates of expenditures in the budget, such as townwide fixed cost increases. We sort of highlight this stuff so everybody can understand. Obviously, health insurance, the rates have not been finalized by the provider as of yet. Town can expect that the rate will be set within the next few months. We have made a conservative estimate based on the current enrollment. We'll have to revisit our estimate later in the budget cycle. So that's always something that we're trying to keep an eye on. Trash hauling and incineration rates continue to increase. In addition, the cost of disposal and recyclable materials continue to increase and have been impacted with increased tonnage and contamination charges. We will continue to monitor this budget for any fluctuations in tonnage, and we'll consider making adjustments later in the budget cycle. If you remember, a few years back is when I think China stopped taking recycled plastics, and that sort of tipped everything upside down. I think people used to make money on having recyclables, and now recyclables is almost similar, a pretty close cost to regular trash now for hauling and disposal. Pension contribution. The pension appropriation for FY '25 is in the amount of $5.5 million. This is a decrease from the amount appropriated in fiscal '24 as a result of the most recent funding schedule prepared by PERAC and voted by the Saugus Contributory Retirement Board. This funding schedule is based on the actual valuation completed in January '23. It reflects a 4.2% increase in FY '26 through '28, with the final amortization payment being made in FY '28 to fully fund the pension obligation. This is 1 year longer than the previous funding schedule that reflected the final amortization payment being made in FY '27.
Just get a quick question.
Yes, sir.
I know you have no control over this pension stuff.
Correct.
But why was it kicked back a year? That's the first question.
Sure.
Second question is, once we do reach full pension maturity, what would our costs drop that much from the $5 million we're paying now?
Sure, it would, so we can talk about that, and I think the next paragraph kind of touches on
Okay.
it, I think, I have to remember if it is, but that's something that the state retirement board
Right.
votes on, and then it's up to the local board to accept. We've had this conversation, I think I would have rather just kept paying, what the rate we're doing with the increases, to sort of get it out of the way. They feel like the funding is doing well, the investments, and they made a choice or a decision to extend it out a year, so our payment dropped. And what you'll see is that what we talked about as a financial management policy is people understand the bond, start to understand more about the bond rating and how we get evaluated. The OPEB, which is the unfunded liability that the town carries, we're talking about transferring those monies that we've been paying into retirement to go on an annual basis into the OPEB, which will put us in a much better financial position long term. And so, why they did it, I don't know. We kind of said, so we actually have a reduction, and we'll see that the money that we would have paid, we're putting that into OPEB this year.
And OPEB will protect us in case of market losses,
Correct.
so that we won't get slammed with some massive contribution to the pension plan that, if the stock market crashes, there's a dramatic change in the economy.
Correct.
The OPEB can be used to help.
So it helps on the unfunded, so when someone retires, so the OPEB, as you know, they do like an actuary, we have to do one, every 2 years? So every 2 years, we have to hire a company that does an actuary, and they look at everybody that's an employee, and if everybody retired at one time, what those what they call legacy or costs are of paying for a pension and other benefits when they retire. And so that's the unfunded liability that's going on in the whole state, but a lot of people, we've been aggressive about it now. And I think one of the things that we brought to the table is to make people talk about it like we are now, and talk about it at town meeting. And each year, we put in a small amount, so that it's on the warrant and people are aware of it. And that goes a long way when we do a surveillance call for the bond rating, that we've identified what our unfunded liabilities and how to get there. The OPEB is similar to the retirement pension plan, it's in the sense of we're trying to get the fully funded at some point. And, you know, that's gonna take time, just like we did with the retirement. By doing that, it helps maintain our financial health, which helps us with the bond rating. But yeah, that's part of that, and, you know, ideally, you think of this and you understand a lot of this. So ideally, if you look at how if you had every employee, right, the way to sort of combat this, but we couldn't in the budget, it's challenging, right? If every employee, you allocated X amount of dollars to what their retirement would be when they retire, what the cost would be to pay their retirement, you could actually allocate in the budget now and start putting it away, and we do that in the water and sewer. So in other words, that's the ideal situation if you get fully funded, or you get to a point that you start allocating X amount of dollars of every employee, so their salary, benefits, and OPEB contributions would be budgeted, and then you put it in on an annual basis, and that would protect you from, so now what happens, right, so when people retire, we pay not only what we owe for the year, but we're also paying or making up for whatever costs there are for the retirees.
Yes,
Yeah, so
that's the bill we get here,
correct. So,
based on the actuarial data that
Right.
they use to prepare
I
their
mean,
funding schedule.
in all reality though, it's unrealistic for any municipality or company to expect to be able to fund their PDO. The
Correct.
liability is just massive. When they changed the rules for
Correct.
recognizing pension, and you had to bring on the PDO instead of the ADO, the massive liability that they brought on to balance sheets was just
yeah, so
insane.
the reporting requirements are different,
Yeah.
and that makes it look.
And it makes it look
looks
like you're
bad.
financially broke.
Correct.
When in essence, that's assuming the town of Saugus closed its doors and everybody retired on the same day.
Yes,
I mean, the likelihood of that is, you know, if that happens, then
yeah,
build an ark and
yeah.
swim.
So it, you know, I think you're right, and that's part of, like, you know, what they break down is that this cost goes to that thing. But I think the good thing for us is that we recognized this years ago. We brought this to the forefront, town meeting voted to create
Yep.
a trust that we set up for OPEB, and we've been contributing to it. So that's something that's talked about on the surveillance calls for the rating companies.
And once it's in, you can't take it out,
Correct.
unless it's for
Correct.
retirement.
And it's funny, because some other communities, I think I've talked about this before, some other communities have like an override that's funded, like, you know what I mean, like years ago. Which is like, you know, that obviously wouldn't happen, but that's, you know what I mean, so they funded it, so there is a benefit of getting it fully funded. It's almost like the pensions are almost there now, the pension system, and that depends on if, you know, markets change and whatnot. My guess is the pension thing will never, it's always gonna be sort of chasing it a little bit, especially during down economy, down markets. But hopefully that answers your question, Selectman Serino. An offset to the decrease in FY '25 pension contribution, this amount has been included in the other funding sources portion of the budget and transferred to other, here is OPEB. The public discussion at various budget meetings since the creation of the OPEB trust in 2017 has been that as the pension appropriation is reduced, nearing an end of the funding schedule, the funds will be appropriated to OPEB trust to reduce the amount of unfunded liability associated with these benefits, included on our financial statements, which is a contributor to the maintaining the AA+ bond rating. Regional school assessment, and then we talked about this. The vocational education, inclusive of Northeast Regional Vocational Technical School and the Essex North Shore Tech, is budgeted at $3.2 million, based on estimated numbers provided by DESI on our minimum required contribution. As you know, enrollment information, which can have an impact on our assessment, is not confirmed by the DESI until April 2024. In October 2024, we will receive final enrollment numbers from Essex North Tech regarding the number of Saugus students they have accepted in their school. Northeast Metropolitan Regional School will have their budget voted by the school committee in March 2024 and determine our assessment at that time. Adjustments may be required to be made accordingly. The FY '25 estimated assessment reflects a 13.7% increase. Northeast Metro Voc School has begun construction on the MSBA approved construction project in the amount of $324.25 million based on the most recent debt information provided by Northeast Region. Our share of the existing debt service for FY '25 is almost $500,000. this amount has been included in the voc assessment budget. In addition to the debt service for the construction of the facility impacting the amount appropriated for vocational education, the operational budget for a new school. A new facility will, with new systems and services, could also impact the annual assessment for the education operational budget, which Selectman Chicalini's talked about this in previous years. So just to understand, explain, and so people understand that, is that not only are we have an assessment that we're paying for the construction, right, but we're also there, once they open and increase, the operating costs are gonna go up, and they're increasing the amount of students that would be going, I think, to what, 1,600 or something?
400 students.
Yeah, 400 students, so the operating budget itself is gonna have a percentage increase, so that's gonna have a considerable impact. And I think we talked about this, you know, you could pay for anything we want, but then you have to reduce things. If you wanna have another police officer, you wanna have another, you know, more money in the schools or whatever, you're taking away from, you know, ultimately, this would be $1.5 million to $2 million a year without the operating cost increases for the next 30, you know, for at least 30 years. So it's pretty significant. I know it doesn't sound like that because the numbers that sometimes people gloss over, but it has an impact, and I think we're gonna need to, you know, see what the public wants to do as far as trying to help fund this. As you know, the amount of debt service that will be assessed to communities in this district for the project is a fluid number, as it is based on enrollment. As our enrollment changes each year, the amount can change, what's required to be paid. We have created also a stabilization fund in an effort to provide a funding source for future capital assessments for the construction project. So just to understand the other part that is sort of gonna be, you know, sort of a pet peeve of mine is we used to have an average of about 96 students, I think, per year, when we get a 6-year analysis. When this project came to fruition, all of a sudden now I think we went to 170, now we're down to 142, maybe 140. Okay, so even lower, so for whatever reason, we have kids that can't get into the voc, and things
And the
drop
capacity,
considerably.
and the capacity's gonna go up too, so.
Correct.
I wonder what that does for us on the waiting list.
Well, I think, you know, and to be quite frank, I mean, I wasn't, you know, and I was against the voc, I think the school is necessary, it's about how to pay for it and the process of sort of jamming it down sort of communities' throats. But I think that, my question to them is, well, what's changed? Where is show me in writing how how we distribute this between, I think, 13 communities, right? And then, when there's a wait list, if somebody only uses 2 and they have, you know, an ability to have 15, but they're only using 2 spots in North Reading or whatever, where do those other spots get distributed? They could never provide me something in writing, but clearly some kind of policy change or practice change has happened where Saugus is, we have people that have siblings that can't get in, they're on wait lists, and somehow we're not, you know, we're only down to under 140 students, where we used to have 198. So I don't think, you know.
How many do we have at Essex Tech?
I think we have,
19.
19, it was like 21 or something. We had 19, but all good schools, different types of education, they're all public schools. So I think, you know, we're for it. I think to me, like, whatever the cost is, I think, like, because we have less students that are enrolled, we're getting a different bill, and it's not even gonna be reflective of where we should be, and I think that's something that's gonna need a little more investigation to find out why we can't get all the
I
students.
also think the private schools are so competitive now, especially for like the merit in athletes. The kids are going there for like $500 a year or whatever, so instead of them going to the voc or going to Essex Tech for $500 a year, they're going to St. Mary's,
Yeah.
they're going to, you know, Oak Joe or whatever they are,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, the other ones, OLA and all
Yeah.
that. So I
Bishop
think Bishop Fenwick, that's some of the nuances that you've seen in the last 5 to 10 years.
Right.
There's been a huge migration. St. Mary's has become an athletic powerhouse.
Yep.
And they do a heavy recruit, and they do a huge subsidy for students that are student athletes and scholars. And I think that puts us at a disadvantage too, because we get nothing for those kids.
Right, plus there's a whole aspect of, in a lot of, you know, there's a whole aspect of like the full student, right, and balanced student.
Yeah.
Athletics, you know, athletics or extracurricular stuff,
Yeah.
whether it's athletics or something else.
Drama, whatever.
Being in a student, the band, like, there's a whole thing of that you're trying to develop in with students, but I think what happens is when, like, what Jeff's talking, when they're pulling some of the top students out of our school system, those are the role models
Right.
for other kids that help bring the school up and balance things, you know, so there's a sort of a systemic thing that's happening. And even with the Voc, the criticism, I love the Voc, I think it's a great education, a great school, and a great option for parents of Saugus. The problem is that they're very competitive now with what we're teaching here. So in other words, that used to be a vocational school where
Right.
you went there
Now
because
it's a
you went into a
college track
trade.
or a
Yeah.
vocation.
And there's, I think it's like some, I wanna say it's like 40 or 50%, I think there's like a high number of people that are going to college
Right.
out of the Voc now, which, so now they're competing with us, and they're getting to select what they want for students, you know, and so they get to say, well, we don't want that student, but we're gonna do an assessment, an exam or whatever that assesses people, and then they get to pick what shops. So they're competing with our students, so now you have another public school drawing off it, and then, you know, you don't wanna go too far, but then you say, like, you look at what they did in Boston stuff, only certain zip codes were in a certain school, and now that was a public school that's publicly funded. So if you're not chosen to go to the Voc, it's almost like, okay, well, you have to stay at Saugus as if it's a lower, tier school, and a less of an opportunity. So I think that there's an argument to be made that it should be vocational, meaning you go right into the workforce. That's what, I think the definition of vocation means, right? The vocational school, that you're teaching a skill that you can go right to work. And I think people are doing that, but a lot of them they're competing now to draw kids in to go to college, like medical, like, you know, I have nieces and nephews that went there, and they went to college. So, and that's a whole nother aspect of, I think, what's causing issues within the Saugus school system. But anyways, it's something to keep an eye on. I think that the number should be higher. We should be back up into the 190s, and then so I think that's something that needs more investigation to find out. We do have a rep for Saugus, and, you know, we just sort of can't get the answers, and they wouldn't give me answers when I was up there. They sort of didn't want to invite me there anymore. But I think, you know, for our kids, whatever it costs, it costs. Like, in
Yeah.
other words, we're in at the school, and it should be as many kids as we're entitled to or should have in there, we should have in there.
Just on the other hand, Scott,
Yeah.
if the more students we send to the Voc, don't we lose money on the education, funds coming in from the state?
Yeah, somewhat, so it's a transfer, so that money, it's offsets, into that, but yeah, it's not a, you know, it's,
We
because it's a
pay the
public
assessment
school.
fee.
Correct, we pay
We
an
pay the
assessment
Voc
fee.
assessment fee, but we still get the aid,
Yeah.
but then we pay for
Correct.
the
Right.
Yeah,
assessment.
so it's not, I mean, it probably, in the end, it's probably a net loss, to some extent.
Got lost for
A
Saugus.
little bit, yeah,
Yeah.
Yes.
correct. But they're public schools, I mean, it's like the
Yeah.
charter's a public school, people say whatever, I mean, not every school's for every kid, but like the charter school does a great job with, I think, educating people, and they have structure, and everything's different for everybody. I mean, when we were kids, I think they had like an extension, an alternative school, we don't have that anymore, so, you know, I don't know, maybe that's something that, you know, talk to the superintendent, but maybe, you know, instituting that again, you know, for kids. So, you know, but anyways, that's something just to keep an eye on. Other
Got
insurance,
discipline too when we went to school.
yeah, well, I mean, and not to get into this whole thing, but if you go to the Voc, if you're late for school, you stay that day for 2 hours after school, so guess how many kids are late? How many?
I just
So-
found out you can't suspend kids anymore.
No,
Well, you can, there's a way, but you have to, what they have to do is create
it's,
a different area that
Yeah.
they.
They don't go
like
home.
in-house,
There's
yeah.
no more
it's,
getting expelled.
Can't even yell at them anymore. Tragic.
Absolutely.
Even if they do something.
No, doesn't
Correct.
matter.
Hit the ruler back.
It's a Massachusetts thing.
it is, that's exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, other insurance, the various property liability, workers' comp insurance premium estimates have been budgeted based on an increase of approximately 12% over actual fiscal year 2024 premiums recommended by our provider. Premiums will not be finalized until sometime later in the spring. Anybody that's involved in the insurance industry knows that the insurance things are starting to become much more expensive for whatever reasons. Everything's becoming more expensive, so we're budgeting for that. Capital improvements, there are significant capital needs that the town will need to plan and identify funding sources for. Those include, but not limited to such things as local capital facility needs, infrastructure such as roadways, public safety equipment such as fire apparatus and other equipment that is necessary end of life and requiring expensive repairs, as well as funding the Voc School and for the MSBA, their construction project, which we talked about.
I saw one of the pumpers getting towed out today.
Yeah,
GJ was,
yeah, repairing,
look,
yeah.
yeah.
So it's funny because I'm glad we ordered the ladder truck and the pumper because they get you're talking almost 5 years to get a ladder truck. you know,
What are we, a year away?
we're about a year, where I think we're, over what?
About 14 months.
Yeah, because Mike, you know, the chief kept trying to come in here and say
Still.
18 months or 2 years, and I was like, don't say that, because I think we're gonna be 3 years. And now, if you order, I think it's even more, like up to 5 years
Wow.
for those, you know, they built them from scratch, but there's a lot, everything's back, or, you know, the same thing, everything is, I guess, blame it on the pandemic.
Yeah, exactly.
Can't get an
Still.
order at Dunkin' Donuts, correct? Blame it on the pandemic. The estimated fixed costs mentioned above don't take into consideration the contractual wage adjustments, collective bargaining agreements, that have expired and are currently in negotiations. In preparation of this or any other budget, there are concerns for those items that can vary and may change due to circumstances that may occur during the fiscal year. Some items that continue to be a concern, building maintenance costs, which you can never predict. We try to do the best we can with some of the plans that we have for capital and infrastructure, so we do a lot of repairs to sort of try to prevent emergencies. I think we're getting, you know, after 12 years of this, we're starting to get, you know, pretty good at this. Utilities, motor fuel, utilities is obviously, we're dealing with those issues. Waste collection, recycling, we talked about. Vehicle maintenance, we're trying to do a better job of replacing vehicles. Health insurance. As a result of the supply chain issues and the rising cost of goods and services, such as motor vehicle, electricity, heating fuel, we'll continue to monitor these items and may have to adjust accordingly. As we have seen in the past, circumstances can change dramatically, affecting our budgetary estimates for revenues and expenditures. Steps we're taking during the pandemic and in the fiscal years immediately following to minimize the impact on the budget, stabilize services for residents, and maintain current staffing levels. In partnership with yourselves, Finance Committee and Town Meeting, we have been able to present a balanced budget at each of the 3 prior annual town meetings and preserve our current AA+ bond rating. As we prepare the fiscal 2025 estimate revenues and expenditure budgets, many of the same concerns exist that were in 2024 and approved. The estimate revenues continue to return to levels prior to the pandemic as the economy recovery continues. The fixed cost increases and contractual obligations continue to absorb the Proposition 2.5 and new growth projections. Our estimates do not include the use of one-time source of funds in order to present a balanced budget, which is part of our financial management policies. Our estimates are based on historical trends and the use of recurring sources of revenue. And if you remember, it was, you know, I think it's a tribute to what we're doing here financially is that we haven't had layoffs, we haven't had look for an override to operating budgets. Our surrounding communities have been going through this for 3 or 4 years now, where they've had school cuts, layoffs, overrides, all kinds of things, and we haven't been able to do that with a sort of steady Eddie, and we've been able to maintain our stabilization fund, which is made for these type of emergencies, and we've been in pretty good shape. In addition to estimated appropriation expenditures, this budget contains estimates of items such as assessments, overlay, cherry sheet, offsets, and recommendations from the governor of the Commonwealth. Those items are itemized on a sources and use fund document under the heading Use of Funds. School Department fiscal year 2025 estimate budget recommends $33 million and change. That's an increase of $1.5 million over the FY24 budget voted by town meeting. The increase does not include the indirect costs paid on Schedule 19 by the town on behalf of the school department, and included as part of the net school spending calculation required by DESI. So one appropriation that is not included in the source and use document is snow and ice deficit. The cost of snow and ice in the event is always a concern at any time. We have sanding, salting events in the upcoming weeks. As this budget process moves forward, their area of estimated budget will continue to evolve and change, such as state and local revenue estimates, state assessments, and other fixed costs. It's just sort of to talk about that, to understand with the school budget, it's a big number to above and beyond from last year. So it's 1.5 million. It's a concern because, as you know, there was money put away in the stabilization. And just from a practical standpoint, if that was in their budget last year, their operating budget, say $3 extra million, they'd be asking for $6 million this year. right? So like that, so there's an understanding of what they have to do, and I think if you look at some of the reports, I've met with the school and meeting with them regularly, is to try to figure out how to spend the money, as the state has identified back in 2019. It's not a money issue, that school spending is really in good shape, the amount of money, it's a matter of how they're allocating the money, they're spending the monies. So this is a big thing to take on, I think 1.5 million, because it's always gonna grow from there exponentially. But that's at least a placeholder for this point. In the salting and sanding, to understand that, for this is probably the third year that we really haven't had anything significant.
If they don't say it.
Yep, so far. So we got a windstorm,
Knock on wood.
rainstorm coming up, but just, I think people are gonna be shell-shocked at some point when we actually have a legitimate winter, because the cost is so out of control. No communities have actually felt that kind of thing. I think the years of like having $1 million, and that was like a lot of money to pay to cover the snow and ice. I think those days have kind of changed, and I think that, you know, now we're gonna be, so I would say, like, if we have a legitimate winter, you're probably looking at closer to $3 million to do snow and ice. So I think the days of $1 million is probably over. It's much more expensive and cost, you know, I think we've been knocked on wood so far the last few years, and that's helped us do other things with our money. But I don't think that's always gonna be like that. So that's just kind of an overview. Again, this is a preliminary estimate, and, you know, it's just the beginning of the process.
Do board members have any questions regarding that summary from our town manager? Oh, seeing none, I'm gonna ask Wendy, our finance director and treasurer collector, to review the sources and uses of fund document.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, board members.
Evening.
As you're familiar with, we use the source and use document sort of as a summary to outline to the board, the finance committee, and town meeting ultimately, what is the source of our revenue, what is the use of our revenue, and show a balanced budget based on the estimates that we have at this time. So the first page is the source of funds. So our source of funds, generally speaking, are our property tax revenue, our state aid that comes from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, our local estimated receipts, and then transfers that we make to the general fund to cover those expenses paid in the general fund on behalf of the sewer enterprise funds. And then down below, we just list what our estimates for the water and sewer enterprise fund budgets are at this point in time. So to go back to the property tax section, our prior levy limit was $80.4 million this year in fiscal 24 for the real and personal property taxes. Proposition 2.5 increase on that is just over, slightly over $2 million. We have a new growth number in there as a placeholder, as we do every year at this point, of $500,000. We estimate that conservatively because that number isn't finalized and certified between the Board of Assessors and the Department of Revenue until much later in the calendar year, closer to when we're setting a tax rate in the fall.
Do we know what last year's number was?
I
1.5.
think it was 1.6.
1.5.
Yeah, 1.5. Yeah, 1.5, 1.6.
So, and that's a good question, because people say, oh, how come we don't just estimate more, like thinking, because it's not gonna always be that kind of new growth. And what happens is, and a lot of people don't understand this, if you budgeted 1.5 for new growth, and it comes in at 1 million, we now have to go in the budget and cut $500,000. You know what I mean? And that's, you're better having a steady number that you can count on. And
Well,
then-
the deputy assessor, when she comes up with the estimate,
Yeah,
she takes into account projects that are in the pipeline.
correct.
We had those large buildings that were in the pipeline that were
Yep.
paying for permits and fees in the prior year that wouldn't be replicated.
And until an actual
You know,
permit
once
is
the-
pulled
Right, a
and
certificate of
construction
occupancy.
begins,
Right.
she can't put any
And when
of
they
that
can actually,
information
right,
into her calculation.
and when they can actually assess it. And then the other thing is too, it's the same thing, is that you guys weren't here, or you might have been, but I think Mike was here, and Anthony Demer. we had a manager, you know, administration at one point, they would like put in estimates of like building permits. And then when the project didn't get, the permit didn't get pulled in that fiscal year, you now like have all kinds of deficits. I mean, you know, like, we had one year where they estimated putting a red light that would write tickets, and they had that in the amount that we were gonna pull in for revenue, which was like some significant amount that they were gonna generate from a stoplight that would automatically give tickets, that was never even got put in. It was
Right.
like on Walnut Street or something, or Central Street or something, so it's better to know what you're gonna get, and rather than do something where you have to come back to town meeting and make cuts. That's never a good situation. That's what used to happen all the time. They'd be using one-time sources of free cash, the way that structural deficits and all that. A lot of people don't remember, they have to close the fire station intermittently, close the library, all that type of thing went on. I think, you know, myself, Wendy, and, you know, the finance team, I think we've done a pretty good job of trying to spend within our means and be able to keep things running and the lights on.
So in addition to the 2.5% increase in the new growth, we include, the amount that is been excluded from Proposition 2.5. It gets added on top of the tax levy for those projects that were voted by the residents in town to be excluded. That would be the Belmonte Middle School repair project, prior to its most recent renovation, the construction of the high school, middle school, and then the reconfiguration project of the veterans in the Belmonte schools. So that's a total of just under $90 million. The cherry sheet estimates, right now, we're basing them on the FY '24 numbers, that's $17,509,556. As we go further through the process and we see how the state budget moves through the House, the Senate, Ways and Means, there could be some adjustment there.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I have last year's budget book, and it was 13.3 million. Is that what it was in 2024?
Nope, it actually came in at the 17 million. There was an increase as they went through their
Yeah, so what happens a lot of times, so people understand, is the governor comes up with numbers, and then obviously the House and the Senate, things change, and things get cut or not. And sometimes the governor, it's a political thing where they say they're gonna fund everything, and then leaves it up to the House and the Senate to sort of make the cuts, and then it goes to committee and all that. But I think that you have to be careful, and we've always had this practice since we got in, it doesn't get us into trouble. Again, prior administrations would take like the number the governors come up with and put that in the budget and balance the budget on that, and then the governor's numbers would drop significantly after going through the budget process of the state, so then you have to come back and make cuts in the budget. That's our meeting, or you'd have structural deficits that I think would make paper adjustments, and then we wouldn't have enough money to pay for the expenses. And so there's an understanding that we wait to see where this is gonna go and how much pushback, and then we make the adjustments through the finance committee process and when we get to town meeting.
Yeah, I think we have to look at, because there's such a delta every year between, I'm all for the conservative budget, that's how I do it as well. But looking at the governor, I highly doubt they're gonna hit the numbers that they're telling us. They're telling us around 19.3, and we're at 17.5.
They're in trouble, yeah.
And they've got deficits galore, they're deficit spending now, so I'd rather go on the conservative side. However, I do wonder what we could do, or what you do now, from a financial management standpoint, to deal with stretch goals, if in fact we do have expanded receipts beyond. You know, could we have a kind of a mini draft of a wish list of things we could do with that? Maybe it's a capital acquisition, maybe it's pay down some debt, whatever it is.
We don't wanna pay debt down, we're in pretty good shape with the interest rate.
I get, well, I'm not thinking the school debt,
Yeah.
I'm thinking the,
Yeah. No, the other stuff we're pretty
do
good, we've refinanced a couple times.
Yeah.
Saved some quite a
So, but I'm just thinking if we do have a situation where the receipts come in 1.5, 1.7 million higher,
Yeah.
maybe we have something so it doesn't look like we're just trying to find a way to garner a surplus, when in essence, I have no confidence in the governor's numbers.
Right. And-
Nor do any of my clients that are building their budgets. They're doing the same thing. They're taking last year's, they're not using what they're saying, because they're already cutting programs, and, you know, I saw cuts that happened on the police department, on the communication side.
Yeah.
They're supposed to get 50, they got 25.
Yeah.
They're already starting to
And they
chop.
started that way early before
Yeah.
Christmas.
Right.
So that's unheard of.
So we went from collecting too much taxes
Yeah.
in Massachusetts, where everybody got that 14% rebate, to now, they're saying we're deficit spending and we have a huge deficit.
And so from the bigger thing, just to add to that, the state, they have a surplus of money, right? They brag about that a little bit, but a lot of that's had to do with stuff they clawed from the feds.
Yep.
Through the pandemic and COVID and all that, and now they're using that, which is the worst kind of budgeting. Like, we
Yep.
do this for, this is
Because
what
once
we
it
do.
goes away, you
They,
can't
but
replicate
they're
it.
using that money to supplement the last few years, including now, for reoccurring revenues and expenses. And, I mean, reoccurring expenses, operating.
Yep.
And that's never, it's gonna drain out, and then they're
Right.
gonna have a budget, there's no money. And that's, their revenues are in trouble, as you've seen the state, or at least there's some, think tanks that are saying that the revenues are in trouble with the state. And that's
Yeah.
gonna that's gonna eventually roll into the.
Once they're saying that the real estate, the commercial real estate.
Once it folds.
In Boston by 2027 could be somewhere between $3 to $4 billion less revenue to the state.
Wow.
And that's across the country. Like, it's gonna be a
3 to
big.
4 billion less.
They're
Nobody's-
building more and more offices too in Boston.
300 million condo.
Yeah. A lot of
A lot of them you can't convert, there's different issues with
So
the building
even
codes.
Verizon just built that massive building. Now they're trying to sub out a bunch of the floors because they realize that the work from home and
Yeah.
hybrid model, they don't need 26 floors in the building.
Right.
So they got like 40 or 50 people working at 26 floors right now. So, scary.
Wow.
So they're gonna really,
Two
when
people
that,
per floor.
when that comes to roost, that's gonna be,
Well, we all know, right, the banks are never gonna take the hit.
Yeah.
Right? So that commercial crash of
Yeah.
commercial real estate is gonna roll into somewhere along the line, the regular average Joe is gonna be.
yeah,
like
they'll
me,
cut their
is
local
gonna-
aids
yeah.
and cut what they give you for chapter 90, cut what they give you for chapter 70, and
Right.
they'll just keep chopping and chopping
Yeah.
and tell you to figure out how to fix it.
You have a question, Mike?
Yeah, just a quick question. Wendy, on the debt schedule for the high school, when does that start coming out, after what year?
So the way that the debt board is,
Structured.
structured, thank you, is called a level debt service instead of declining debt. So it doesn't work like your mortgage where, well, it does work like your mortgage. So we have a level payment between principal and interest for the life of the loan. And the reason that it was done that way is so that we could stabilize the tax rate for the entire life of the loan. That's pretty much how we structure all of our debt. So that you don't have a peak here and then all of a sudden you're at declining debt and then, oh, the tax rate can go from, $12 to $10 and then we need to borrow money again, it goes
Yeah,
back up
it's
to
almost, it would almost be
14.
like a variable rate,
Yeah.
because of
Yeah,
that.
so we structure it so it's
And that's a
Steady.
25-year,
30,
30?
yeah, but probably got what, 25 left or whatever.
Yeah, it seems like that.
Yeah. Well, but obviously the thing that's benefit for us, and that was, like I tried to explain this to the vocational school, those folks up there. We did something different. We had a schedule that we showed people that it would take so many years before we peak and ramp out, when it would hit their tax bill. And what we decided to do, I think we're pretty vocal about this, and if everybody was on the board, and we dealt with, worked with our financial plan and stuff. But we borrowed all the money up front, and if you remember back a few budgets ago, we would have, like, when we were building it, we had like investment money, they limit what you can invest, but we had all the money borrowed. We borrowed more than the majority of the money at less than 1%.
Yeah.
So we did we advertised that, and that we calculated the savings just on doing that, it was like $7 million. $7-8 million, that's just for that, not like, because of us, it hit the residents sooner. But it was better for us to have sort of before the interest rates went up, and I tried to explain that to the folk, I think at the time they were like at 3%, now I think they're at 5.5 probably for long-term rates.
Well, they don't have
And- Right,
a good rate either, so they're gonna use the state's rate, right?
which is even worse, right, so there
Yeah.
might be 6%, so then they have to make cuts in the building, because you're 6 times the amount that we could have borrowed for, it's like you could buy more house, or you buy more, the less, less the amount of money you're paying towards interest and whatnot, you're buying more. We can do more for the taxpayers, so in other words, we wanna do a project, we're paying less interest to be able to do that project, and more, we're paying more to the principal, so you can do it better. But the vote now is already, I think at the beginning, they had to cut 10% of the project to adjust for the interest rates. And they're still now borrowing, I tried to explain to them, borrow all the money up front, and, explain that to everybody, that you're gonna lock in a lower interest rate, and it just didn't translate. But anyways.
So in the local receipt portion, that That's the portion, local estimated receipts that, you know, it's motor vehicle excise, it's meals tax, it's hotel room tax, penalties and interest, other fees that, the town may collect, permitting fees, investment income, and other miscellaneous income that may come in. So there's a small increase there on that, about 12%. The biggest thing I say to everybody is, you know, we're budgeting that on historical trend, what we're seeing as actual numbers coming in each fiscal year. A couple of those categories, like investment income, that's not something that we can really build into the budget. You know, we may get so much in investment income from the money that we hold in our accounts, but you can't plan that, you can't budget that. Interest rates are gonna change, that's too variable of a number, so you have to stay with consistent sources of revenue, like those excise taxes we talk about, and, the permit fees and rentals of various properties that we have. So that's,
Are we invested in just like money market type accounts, or?
No, it's pretty limited what we can invest in.
Right.
yeah, so it's mostly money markets, the Mass Municipal Depository Trust, we hold a lot of the banks are doing away with the FDIC, DIF insurance, and so, you know, we have to find alternative methods, we have a couple of CDs, and the banks just aren't covered, you know, carrying that insurance anymore, so,
So did you say that was an increase from last year?
it is, yep.
Okay, so the number
was-
I must
it-
have from the budget from last year must be an old number,
Well, it's
I think
probably,
8.2, right?
yeah, I think it's based on actuals,
because that was the number that I
Yeah.
had.
so it's based on actuals, increase on actuals.
So of the $9.2 million budget, roughly half of it is motor vehicle excise.
Yes,
Yeah.
And then about 2.1 million is meals and room taxes,
yes, yeah.
which obviously makes sense. Yeah, I get what you're saying about the investment income, because it's so volatile, and you don't know what you don't know.
Well, when we borrowed all that money, we had a ton of investment income.
Right.
People were like, geez, that's a.
But our numbers
big
are still big. If you look at our actuals,
Yeah.
our numbers are still big, but you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And it was 850,000 in the prior year, so, you know, I just, you don't know what the interest rates are gonna do.
Right.
And especially,
been better now.
they're supposedly gonna start chopping
Yeah.
interest rates, so.
I have
So the next section, the transfers or reserves to be used in the general fund, those are in the indirect cost calculation or estimate. Those services like health insurance, life insurance, Medicare tax, the benefits that we pay in the general fund budget, on behalf of those enterprise funds. And then the water and sewer enterprise fund budgets, those are the estimates based right now. And the water enterprise fund, as we get there, one of the larger items is the MWRA assessment, and then on the sewer enterprise, beside the debt service, is the operation and maintenance expense at the Lynn Water and Sewer Treatment Plant. So the next page on that document is the use of funds, so we have the municipal general fund operating budget for $78,261,914. That's the total on the last page. The school fund operating budget at the $33 million, that the manager read in his letter, for a total of $111,369,539. The other items to be raised, those are the state county cherry sheet charges that are on the cherry sheet from the state. Again, we're using numbers that are reflective of FY24. We have some cherry sheet offsets for library aid we have to raise, and then we have the allowance for abatements and exemptions, what used to be called overlay. That's $500,000, so we have to raise that amount to offset the abatements and exemptions that are processed by the Board of Assessors for the reduction of real and personal property tax. And then you just have the offset to the source of funds, the use of funds, the water and sewer enterprise funds. So the total use of funds matches the source, $132,993,161. So right now, we have a balanced estimated budget in place.
Do board members have any questions regarding the sources and uses document?
I do, Madam Chair.
You do?
Yes, please. I just wanted to know, we all watch the news, we all see what's going in the state, what's going on. You know, again, with all the monies that they got, they only got 50%. It's not gonna get any better. What do you, if anything, what's your planning? Like, if you're home, you know what you have to start doing in order to save the money, or to redirect it. So what do you look at, like, to see that this is gonna happen? So what do you do, like, to try to,
Yeah, so basically, it's interesting because, and Jeff and I talk about this all the time, if you have outside accountants that come into like finance committee, that get on the finance committee, they look at things differently. Like when you're building a budget, so we're pretty conservative, in a good way, because we brought the town from where it was to where it is. And a lot of, what happens is that we build the budget backwards, so we try to look at what we know and we guarantee what we're gonna receive, and then we try to build it that way, and that's what Jeff's talking about. Well, it might be, what if you get another $1 million that you didn't know was gonna be there? Well, if we budgeted all that
Right.
and spent it all, now we're in big trouble, like, in other words, because now we
Now
have to
you're
make
reeling.
cuts. And we're gonna be in like these other communities where everybody's in a turmoil, and you get newspaper articles, and everybody's saying, well, what do you mean, I don't want my budget cut, and we're all fighting with each other. And that went on here for years and
Yes,
years.
yeah.
They'd use all the free cash to put in operations, and it would be like, we'd have structural deficits in the budget. They played with numbers, and, you know, we had those thing and everything else. So we try to build it backwards, and then be very conservative of what we think we're gonna receive for revenues. Obviously, you don't wanna have a revenues, deficit, so everything that's all, you know, not legal. And you don't wanna have an appropriation issue, so you wanna make sure you're appropriating enough money to pay for your expenses, and the expenses, there's no structural deficits, meaning, if you think this water costs, you know, $2, and we only put in the budget that it's gonna cost us $1, this used to happen with the other administrations all the time, where's the other dollar coming from? You know, or you get like, and I don't wanna think, but a lot of people go, well, I wanna have X amount of dollars in the budget, let's take 1% from every budget. Well, you can't. If this is $1, you can't take 1% and say 99 cents, because you have to come up with the other penny. It's a fixed cost, and we know what the cost is. So, we try to build it backwards, and we've been very good at doing this, and like we have money in reserves, we're supposed to have, and that's why the bond rating is what it is. I mean, when we took over, it was a, you know, and I tell the story, and I always love to tell the story. You go down to the youth and rec center, right? You look at the doors that are there, that were donated by, I don't know, like different companies, like they would donate to put doors in because the town couldn't afford to put doors in the building. And then like the walls were all built, I think you probably around, they built, the Home Depot built them as a donation. Like in other words, we didn't have the money to build, like, to do building, like, and when I took over, I was on the board with Mike, and I think somebody called me and said, oh, there's a broken window at one of the buildings, and I remember calling the manager saying, hey, I got a call, it's like a broken window. He's like, well, we can't fix it now, there's no money in building maintenance and in the budget, but, I could have a contract to do it, then bill us in July, but it's kinda, you know, that's not really legal, but I can do that, otherwise we have to wait till July 1st. And I was like, wow, like, you know what I mean, like, how do you operate a business like this, like a community, and not have that kind of money? And I think we changed the way we budget, and it's been a long haul. You've been around, we fought with a lot of people to try to educate people and understand that this isn't like oh, boo-hoo, the bond rating, oh, boo-hoo, we have this money in stabilization, and we should be spending it all, and we have free cash. Well, that's what you're supposed to have. Those are healthy communities. And then the bond rating is how they rate how your health is, and then they send that out internationally for people who invest in our things. And Jeff talks about it all the time, the amount of people that, the town had like a BBB bond rating at one point. No one would, lend money to the town. So we try to build backwards. We've done a good job. We haven't had layoffs. And I know people that just probably goes over their head. Look at the communities. I mean, there's communities around us. They're having overrides to pay for their operations. Lynn had to borrow money in a special article with the state, like $16 million a couple of years ago to pay for operations. Like not, like the MBTA for years was using operational money with borrowed money. That's why it failed. We don't do that here. And, I push back and take the heat. We have financial management policies that we follow, and we try to make sure that we have money. If there is an issue, we have money within the free cash to pay for snow and ice or any emergency that comes up, like the pandemic. If you remember, we took money out, but then we sort of really did the budget conservatively so we could put the money back to maintain our bond rating. Because when this is taxpayer money. So when you're able to get, 1% on interest rate rather than a 5% interest, that's 5 times the cost to borrow that money. So you can do less. You can build one building, not two, or fix one playground instead of two. and that's the thing that's different, it changed, a lot of people are new to town, so they don't understand, like, we never fixed, I grew up here, you know, they didn't fix a playground here in 50 years, you go back and look at the articles, not even articles that say the thing, I think they did you know, we had little repairs, but we never had major overhaul of doing a brand new playground, I think we had one down at Stalker, but that was like I think with Angela, got some kind of grant or something, that they did something down there, but other
About
than that, we
35
didn't.
years ago.
Yeah, so, you know, so those are the, you know, we built buildings, I mean, Ed Collins is really smart at how, financially, of how he made that happen, and, you know, like, he sort of over-assessed and then knew there was gonna be an abatement, but it's already in the levy, and had the money to be able to seed money to be able to do it, but you're talking about when we did the buildings, it was 20 million, what was it, $25 million? To build all kinds of buildings, $25 million, you can't even, it costs you 10 million to do site work, I mean, it's astronomical, but we try to build backwards. We're very confident, I think that, we're in good shape, and this is a process, so this is just a document that's gonna change, it's gonna, you know, this is the way beginning of the process of the budget, as you know. And this is when it gets to town meeting, and even after the town meeting budget, the state makes changes and things happen and things that we don't expect. You know, I think I've identified the issues, like the vote school, that's a considerable cost that will take away from our quality of life, if we wanna do more things, we wanna build a fire station, wanna do, you know, do more construction and capital. I think that's like important that we recognize that those are issues, because if we don't, and we just say, oh, it'll work itself out, that's what they used to do, and then they would try to like figure out how to have no retained earnings in water and sewer. We don't wanna go up in the rates, and you guys have been great, like, for the years I was on the board, I didn't even, and I tell the story, you guys have heard it before, I was on the board at Selectmen, I didn't even know we were in charge of sewer rates. No one ever brought it up on the board, like, it was like, don't bring that up, you know what I mean, the manager will fire the manager if he even mentions it. And so, you can't do all that $20 million or $50 million worth of work and never go up in a rate, because the rates weren't paying for the actual operating expenses and the debt service. You know, and each year it's gonna go up, we're gonna keep doing that, and I think we've gotten past that sort of mentality, and the same thing with the budget, I think people know in town meeting and everything else, you make different decisions that are against what the financial management policies, when we go on a surveillance call, that's what they're asking, okay, you took money out, yeah, we're anticipating town meeting, we're now in a good shape, we're gonna bring the money back and put it back in a stabilization, okay, and then they follow up to see if that actually happened. That's how they judge where you're at, and you know, we build it backwards, so I think we feel conservative, if people stop playing, and I say this all the time, and you know, people take it however they want, but you know, at the end of the day, I'm the guy that has to go to worries about the budget. When we go to sleep, we're worrying about things all the time. And it's gotten better because we have good practices here, and people like the Selectmen, Finance Committee, Town Meeting have followed the guidelines that we've established from DOR. Mike and I went to the Department of Revenue back in the day, and
To use the state's bond?
right, because our bond rate, we couldn't even borrow it. So we had to use their thing to get people to borrow. I mean, I remember coming here, the Finance Committee, my first year as the manager, and I brought an article to buy like, I don't know, 6 or 7 police cruisers. They hadn't bought a police cruiser in 4 years. They had one donated from the mall or something. And they were like over 100,000 miles. And I remember the Finance Committee, they said to me, well, we don't borrow money. And I was like, what? How would you, what are you talking about? They're like, no, we don't borrow money. I'm like, how do you do anything? Like, that was the mentality, because they were afraid, they didn't trust. It was a whole thing. But to go back to your thing, I think we try to do what we can, and there's, like I say to everybody all the time, there's 1,000 people that could say we should do something different with the budget. At the end of the day, you know, we try to make the best thing we do based on feedback from all different sources, and try to figure out what the needs are and come up with a plan, and things change, there's obviously different needs and identifying things, and we try to adjust to that. But at the end of the day, a lot of people, you know, town meeting, or you go home, like, in other words, and if something goes wrong and the library has to close, or the fire station, or roof caves in, I'm the one that's responsible for it. And so we try to make sure that we do capital improvements. We did it like I think, I don't know, a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, we borrowed money to do even beyond the capital improvement plan to move things forward. We had some extra money, like Jeff talked about, and we were able to now start to do stuff. We got stuff going on now with the senior center, and we get stuff going with the American Legion. You know, we have different things that are going on, other projects that are gonna come to life. And that's, we're able to do that because we have a little bit of conservative thing. I mean, you know, it's the same thing, it's a balance with the snowstorm, right? If 2 to 3 inches and everybody wants, you know, gets on Facebook and they want everything plowed to the thing, well, if it's not needed and it's more of a, you know, not a safety issue, then we try to figure out what's best for the community, you know, and not to overspend. I mean, there was a year that I wasn't here, they spent, I don't know, $1.2 million in a month, so.
Yes.
I think that was, part of that, with my question was,
Yeah.
if the state ends up, we don't get the money that you're thinking we even may get, and they say, nope, you're not getting anything.
Yeah.
You know, now what do you do with that money that you were sort of counting on, in a sense?
So we have some conservative estimates
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
that issue.
Conservative
If that
estimates,
happened, then
Right.
but if it happens,
Right, and
this
the
is,
thing that I will tell you, one of the things that Wendy knows is a policy, right? When people say like the schools or whoever, I don't wanna pick a, or we have a savings, right? my motto is, and if we don't put the money away, then it's really not a savings. If we save money and then spend it, then we didn't really have a savings. And we've, tricked people, like, it's like, somebody goes shopping, my wife says, oh, it was on sale. Okay, but we still paid for something, you know what I mean? It's not really a sale because we spent money. But I think that that's one of the things that we try to do is be conservative and not to overspend. Spend within our, spend within our means, and that's something I think that the schools have to learn. And everybody knows that we can all say, hey, we wanna do more for the schools. Even me, right thing, I'm sure that I'm gonna get tons of criticism for giving $1.5 million to the schools. That's more than we've ever given. That's gonna be now, if it stays at 1.5, the next year it starts at that 1.5 more. Like, you know what I mean, like I say to you, there's money in stabilization for them to access, they haven't accessed, but if that was in the operating budget, that would be $3 million or plus. In the operating budget now, they'd be asking for
So
another three.
just to put it in perspective, our 2.5% property tax increase on Prop 2.5 is just over $2 million, $2,010,000. And then new growth at 500,000, so
Yeah.
2.5. Putting 1.5 in the schools on their direct line,
Yes,
and then
another
when you
1.5
take,
million on
another-
Schedule
The
19.
indirect,
on
yeah.
the Schedule 19 increase,
They're looking at
another
$3 million.
Right, so
Right.
basically, the schools are getting the entire tax levy increase plus the new growth.
Correct.
Plus.
Correct. Right, so I think people don't understand that, and there's a lot
Are
of,
we following the state with our education?
Yeah, right.
yeah,
So something's-
And that's
something's
the
not going
scary
right.
part, Anthony, that's the scary part. If you look at our net school spending formula,
Yeah.
we're up there,
way up there.
we're up there. So something, like you started this meeting saying something, and I have
There's a
confidence.
report from 2019, and they're done by retired superintendents, so
Right.
they never kill a school system.
Right.
But it's clear, like, when you look.
But I have confidence in the administration
Yeah,
that's over there,
I
I
agree.
feel like they got their eye on the prize, they know what they want
Yeah.
to accomplish. I think this gives them the resources that
Yeah.
they need, and I talked to a couple of the school committee members, and they seem to have the right ideas for
Yeah.
reinvesting back into the right people.
I agree.
We need more teachers, we need more educators.
Right, I
and,
agree.
Well,
you had I think, it's a long story, but, I mean, I
Yeah.
hear the same thing. I
Yeah,
talk
no,
about
we
it
don't
with
have
the
to get into
schools.
all
But- But I think to even piggyback on the question you asked, Green, the other part that is a sort of a thing that Wendy and I, it's sort of our principles of how we live, is when like everybody says, oh, let's get a grant, let's do this. We get grants that supplement what we're trying to do. In other words, we're not gonna get a grant, and this is a perfect example to tie into the school, right? We're not gonna get grants to pay for positions that aren't sustainable. So in other words, you'll see in the school budget, right, they have, I don't know, close to $1 million in grant positions that are now coming online in their operating budget. That's why they're asking for so much money, because they're trying to maintain these positions that they got on a grant. Well, you gotta figure out, it'd be like us getting grants for every position, different positions. We're gonna get 3 people on a grant if they had them for the DPW. Well, then you have to be able, once the grant runs out in a year, you have to figure out. So when we've hired firefighters on grants, we've explained that in the budget and actually when the school says we've absorbed it in the budget, no, it's like all-day kindergarten. They sent the bill here, so now they're not asking for $1 million, they're asking for $2.6 million. Because now the all-day kindergarten that was on a grant is not being paid for. The 17 and a half new positions they're bringing online that weren't on before with 13 that have health insurance, that was never in the budget before. That was being paid somewhere else. So though, like the point I'm making is that we don't live off of grants. We look at grants for projects and things that are based on our needs, so that we can then use that as a bonus to save the taxpayer money. So that we're not using the levy, and we're not using the money that we want for operations, for services. We're now getting these one-time things to fix bridges and do, different grants that we picked up for different things. So that's how we do it, yeah.
thank you.
Should we start going?
Yes, so what I would ask the town manager and Wendy to mention if there's, as we go through this, any new positions. I saw that you put in media content manager in
Yeah.
your budget, and there's a GIS manager, I don't know what that stands for, but but just mention those and what they are as we go through this. If you could identify any open positions and any progress you're working on trying to fill those positions, for example, the town planner, I'd be interested in learning more about that. And just highlight any other significant changes over last year. That would be great. So, there's nothing in the town meeting moderator that took his dollar away. The Board of Selectmen budget. Any questions? No? I'm gonna move forward then. The town manager's budget. Any questions from board members on the town manager's budget? And like I said, I did see you put that media content
Yeah.
specialist in. That's somebody who you're looking to fill to do the
So
websites.
I think we're, like, what we're looking at doing and we've been trying to do is have somebody, and I think we'll have more time to sort of put that into play. So we're gonna have somebody updating the websites and, I think we're waiting for your office now for minutes so that we can put your minutes up online. I don't think we've got them yet.
Yeah, so Janice is going to give you all the approved
Okay,
minutes,
perfect.
and she's gonna give it to Jeannie. That would be great. Thank you.
So, but I think that would be the idea, and then, I think that, actually Colleen's husband come up with, some of the push things that we can put in place, and I think we'll hopefully have the time to sort of put that into place.
Yeah, I mentioned to him.
Yeah, I may reach
that
out
you
to
would
him,
be-
yeah.
Yeah,
Cause I'm trying to get somebody, and I don't think it's, see, the problem is, you know, we hire someone and then they get benefits, and then who knows what they'll do. I think it's better almost to try to get somebody online that, is like sort of an outside consultant that can help put some of the stuff together that has like, is an expert in it. 'Cause we really don't have the capacity or the expertise in social media, getting that platform.
Well, that is something
We need to do it soon.
that the
Yeah,
board
yeah.
made it as a priority,
Yep.
so.
Right.
All right, so that's the town manager's budget. Finance committee budget, any questions? Are there any questions on accounting? I have one for Wendy. Are all the positions filled in accounting?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Any additional questions?
I do have one question.
Mm-hmm.
Are we still budgeting for assistant purchasing manager?
Yes,
But that's not filled.
that's correct. Is that under accounting?
Oh, it is under accounting,
Okay,
yes.
so it used to be in its own department, but yes.
And a clerk.
Well, I think we have it in there because, yeah, but we're, I think, more interested in filling another position, in the purchasing. The clerk, I think, is sort of, if we could get somebody, then that would be great, to have by.
Just a quick question on your budget, Scott. The total, how many positions is that?
Should be 3 positions?
Yes.
Total of 5,
Oh, 5, I'm sorry.
With the truancy.
with the media and the truancy.
Yeah, the truancy
Okay,
is not a position, just so for clarity.
Yeah.
I think that should be changed. It's money that's set aside for the schools, anytime that they want, access to have police officers investigate or, sit on houses or investigate the truancy capacity, or, whether they're supposed to be in the, school or not,
Yep.
where they're bedding and sleeping.
Living
That's why I-
in
Yeah.
another.
Yeah, so they've never accessed the money, I put it there sort of, it's there, if they want it, it's a pet peeve of mine, and I think we did it, we did it one year, we got, with Sean Monahan and Dave DeRuzzi, when I first brought it up, and we got like 27 kids out of the system
Yeah.
in a month. And then it's sort of like, the school's gotta be motivated to do it, it's not my, you know what I mean? So like, I kinda put it there with a test to say, here, the money's here, if we needed it, we could pay police officers overtime or whatnot, detectives to do this. So I think it's important to leave it there, because otherwise, you know, if you
Yeah.
give them the money in the budget, it's gonna disappear. And the same thing is happening where, I would estimate, you know, I don't wanna do an estimate, but is, you know, I think there's quite a few, kids that we're paying for as taxpayers that are going to the school that aren't supposed to be in the school. There's policies that I helped, write back, in the day, that other high-end schools use, like, you know, try to put your kid in the Linfield saying they're living at their aunt's house or their grandmother's house. You have a divorce decree you have to bring in, the thing says that they're living in Revere with the mother, you can't get into school. Here, I'm actually working with them to actually centralize, had meetings with them to try to centralize the registration again. They decentralized it after we talked about it has to be centralized, because nobody knows, if you go to the school and sign up, no one knows who signed up or not.
Okay.
Yeah, so anyways.
Okay. Assessors, any questions on the assessors? The professional and technical property appraisal, is that Patriot?
Yeah.
Any questions on the treasurer collector? Seeing none. Legal counsel? Do we have questions on legal counsel?
No, just a statement, I think that obviously everything is going up in expenses and, we have a lot more things going on, so that obviously the legal, I think, budget is gonna increase.
I figured that when I saw the increase.
But that's a cost of doing business, so.
Yeah.
I think years ago, we used to say it was, you know, it's a bad word to say that you're spending legal fees.
I'd rather have it in the budget than
Yeah.
not.
Of course.
Next is human resources.
Yeah, so we have a position in there that's open that we're,
Is that the HR manager's position that's open?
I
Or the
think either
director?
director, one or the other, we're trying to work that out.
Director's open. IT, any questions with IT? And the
No,
company
But
where
the
you,
outsource is working well.
Pretty good, yeah, I think it could improve. One of the things that we're, and I think we put money in, or maybe we didn't, I think we put a little bit in the air. If we didn't, we'll make an adjustment, but one of the things that we've taken on, I think, you know, and anybody that's in the business world, Jeff, you probably have clients that are dealing with this, but a lot of what's happening now is that all these breaches and trying to access, and it's happening to municipalities now, trying to get into accounts and all that. So I did employ a company that just dealt with cybersecurity. And they did a whole audit for us, and they have a report they put together, and we're working on that. And I think what we're gonna do is I think I asked Wendy to add some money in there. I think we're gonna have outside of the network and help desk stuff that we do with the outside, I think we're gonna have a different company just deal with cybersecurity for us with all these breaches, and we've already applied for a grant. We got a grant that we're now doing training and sending these Fisher emails to employees that have to, if they click on it, then they have to do certain things, and it explains and it's training, because that's how all that they access and they get into your emails. And that's, we've had people changing direct deposits and all kinds of things that have gone on.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable, trying to get those to the banks and whatnot, so we're gonna bring on a company that specifically does this stuff on a regular basis, and I think it's worth every time. I don't know if you've seen the news, like, the municipality keep it quiet about it, Cambridge got shut down, it was the other,
Oh,
Lowell, I mean, a lot of them,
weeks.
yeah, weeks they were on, using paper, so,
is that gonna be in the profit technology line item?
probably, yeah. And it may change if it's more money, because I think it's expensive to get, with, high end, somebody knows what they're doing.
Okay. The next budget is the town clerk's budget. Any questions on town clerk? The next is the election and registration. Conservation Commission is next. The Planning Board. It's a small budget. The Zoning Board of Appeals. The Department of Planning and Economic Development. This is my question on the town planner and where you
So
are.
I think we're trying to we haven't had much luck with getting like a second person, in a role, we're getting people that just are in college or getting out of college.
Mhm.
So I think I'm looking at restructuring, maybe having like an economic development and a planner that are at that higher level, that I think we increase the salary a little bit as a placeholder to try to get somebody that's more experienced, because nobody, and then make them sort of, co-equals so that we can, attract somebody that's got experience. I can tell you that it's almost like engineers, they're very challenging to get.
So what's in that now? How many bodies are
One.
in that? Just one? Okay.
So you got about $100,000 over budget.
Yeah, I think
For that
we opened
position.
it, yeah, and I think it could go up more depending on what we're able to attract somebody that has more experience. Because you wanna be able to have, part of this is when you have even like the procurement, like if you just have one person in a department and that person leaves, you're like, there's nobody that's a successor. Training, we're like, then it falls on me and trying to figure things out, but I think it's a better move, and then maybe even, we talked about it, and I don't think we put it in there, but it's like we have an administrative position for the procurement, maybe you put that in for the economic development to help sort of do, do a little bit more, to get it's supported.
With all the growth in town,
Yeah.
all the change, I think it's important to fill that position.
The same thing when we get the engineering department,
Yeah.
same philosophy, we haven't had any luck with hiring sort of a junior engineer. And I think that we up the salary and look at somebody that's more of an equal, that they work together in the department, that has experience, I think we're gonna be better off.
Are there any consulting type firms that you could get in
We
the
do.
meantime, or?
We use them all the time, they're very expensive, but we do use them to help support like the planning board and, different things, but they're not, it's just not as good as having somebody in-house and, you know, being able to get things done more efficiently and having that knowledge. So we do have outside consultants, that do help with some of the stuff.
The next is the police department. How many enforcement officers do we have, traffic enforcement officers?
They're assigned, so in other words.
So there's
it's
not,
what-
nobody specifically dedicated?
Yeah, and part of that came from the operational study. Originally, we were talking about, I think, putting in like a traffic division.
Right,
But they did an operational study with, and the chief and stuff talked to them. And I think what works better is having someone assigned, like if somebody likes it, so each shift you'd have somebody assigned to doing traffic. And then they wouldn't be answering calls unless it's an emergency.
do we know how many people are assigned?
I think one a shift, I think that they try to do like one a shift. You know, like in other words, if they're not short-handed, so.
That's on the traffic side.
Yeah.
And then we have a parking enforcement officer.
Correct, yes, yeah. Which I think we're looking at increasing a little bit in that department, because people are saying there's not enough tickets being written. So I think we're going to add like a part-time person.
You're being funny.
No, I'm serious.
Why not?
Well, I'm thinking of all the people that have the handicap placards that keep falling
I mean,
down, and
based
keep
on
getting tickets.
just positions,
Nickel for every one of those.
not including admin, but just in FTE positions for everything from the chief, lieutenant,
Yeah.
sergeant, patrolman, there's 70.
Yeah, it's the most we've ever
That's the
had,
most,
Yeah.
so.
we have 70
We're big, I'm big, you know, this has been a priority for all of us.
that doesn't
is-
include
is
the
public
parking
safety.
enforcement,
Correct.
officer and stuff like that, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a great-
So I think that just so you know, from a organizational structure, the way that the organizational study kind of talked, and the chief sort of agreed with it, is that, having a traffic unit creates like a separate thing, so it's like, in other words, if someone takes a vacation day, now you're filling that position, and it's just sort of more money than it would be having somebody assigned, like when we had, I think it was Paul Bennett was there, he would just be assigned to that every day, he liked it, so he'd get assigned to it, and wouldn't deal with things, but that, if they were short-handed, he would then go into patrol.
Yeah, and when we appropriated for the officers, it's not like we didn't hire officers, we
Right.
hired officers.
Correct.
They were, the money was spent.
Correct.
That was appropriated for
Correct.
the 3 or 4
And then the
officers,
chief, as you
whatever.
know, the chief is the one that deploys manpower.
Right, and not only that, but in talking with the chief and understanding
Yeah.
some of the challenges with the candidates coming through
Right.
and.
Oh, then they
you
don't
know
even
what I
pass the
mean?
academy.
It's
It's unbelievable.
it's not like they're falling out of trees, you know, wanting jobs either, so you gotta take what you can get to, you know, and make sure that you don't.
They
make
used to
it
have
look
hundred and
that
fifty
high.
people on a police and fire list.
Yeah.
They're like if they have 16, and then out of the 16, you might have 3 or 4 that are like, you know, legitimate
quality.
candidates. Yeah, and then.
And then everybody's vying for
They can't even they can't pass the physical to get in, or they can't get through the academy. Unbelievable.
So you said in your cover letter that you were in negotiations, that the contract
Yeah.
was up in
Yeah.
23? So are you, is it almost completed? that
Yeah, so
you-
it's a matter of trying to, because we do all of them at the same time, so they, most of them are in principle.
Yep,
It's a matter of like, you don't want one to get out before the others are all sort of, then in the, you know, that box everybody in.
But it should be
okay.
soon,
but
right?
it's-
Soon,
yes.
yeah, it's pretty soon, yeah.
Are the monies incorporated in this budget, or?
Yeah,
Yes,
that-
okay.
An estimate,
An estimate.
yeah. I assume, just
Yes.
because we didn't increase headcount, I see an increase on the salary line, so.
What is in the professional technology line,
And which one?
page 23?
Is this for police?
Yes.
Yeah, just different, stuff that they use, they have like now, flock cameras and different things in software that they use and crime, you know, software that they have, that they pay for all that stuff.
Fine.
They run, like have analysis software and, not that, you know, I don't know, but maybe people don't wanna hear this, but all the communities around us have these flock cameras, so they read your plate all over the place and it's all shared, so when they run it, they can put in, so all the cameras are linked to all the different communities, so we now have those as well. So it picks up every plate that goes by. So if they put a partial plate in or cover a vehicle, it'll look for that plate from all the, anybody that has a flock camera. So it's Big Brother now, we're into the spit, yeah.
Yeah, we don't need that.
Yeah. They actually solved a pretty significant crime, I won't say which one it was, but using those cameras with another community, that's what turned them on.
You good?
The next one is the fire department. Any questions on the fire department? Code enforcement?
So we were adding,
So, no, we have a position, I think, as a code enforcement that's not filled right
And
do we have it advertised?
now. I think we did, but I'm not sure, it
Yeah,
didn't come
'cause
off
it's
the
been
MMA
vacant
now.
for a while. so-
Yeah,
And-
so I think because we hired with both of those guys, we wanted to see how that worked out, and then to see if they needed additional, because a code guy would be a little bit lower.
Mhm.
will we also?
But like you say, all the building, all the stuff that's going on, it's, they actually need the staff.
Do we also have a another part-time electrical inspector?
Yes.
This year?
No, we've had that.
Oh, we did, I didn't have it in my last year.
You still have Chris working for us?
That's what was on, yeah, he never left, he sort of stayed on.
The inspectors, the building inspectors that we have, are they full-time or are they working 30 hours?
30 hours. So we have 2 or 30 hours.
Any other questions on code enforcement, gas and plumbing inspection? Code enforcement seal of our weights and measures, that's page 30. Code enforcement electrical inspection. Public safety emergency management, is that the fire department?
Yes, well, it's under the fire department. I think we increased that a little bit as well.
Mm-hmm. Public safety animal control,
So I think in here, did we add a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah, you added a position, right?
Yeah, at least a part-time, I think like 30, maybe 25, it's anywhere from 20 to 30 hours.
And
It's just that he doesn't get a break. So
just
it's-
down, where, is he working 40 hours?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is he's getting, he's getting called out at night.
Oh, I know.
And they,
Yeah.
we make the joke that he doesn't like he doesn't like a bad Facebook, social media review, so he answers the calls. So I
Is
think,
that a, just a,
yeah,
is that a consistent number where the full-time animal control would be as far as the salary seems low?
no, it's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually pretty good. We did a study, yeah, I don't think you remember, we did a study
Gotcha.
on it, and I think we put it in line, and I think I got heat for putting it at that, because I think the other guy didn't make as much.
Okay.
And we started, then every time someone leaves, you kind of evaluate to see where we're at. But I think he needs help, and he's got somebody in mind that might be interested, but it's, you have to get a certification and all that, it's not as easy as everybody thinks. But I think it would go a long way to cover his vacations and all that. I mean, the other towns and cities that even they use our facilities, like they should be covering our vacations, and I don't know why. It just doesn't work. I think having another girl or guy would be beneficial to the town as well. I had one, I called him, and he called him up at Waltham, and actually, Jeannie in my office went and got the dog for me, you know what I'm saying? It was actually up by your house. It was like a red dog.
Oh, that little dog?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
So Gene,
I didn't see it.
the down was tied up, and he would've had to leave Waltham, and it was on the weekend.
Right, right. So just speaking about the animal control officer, and this has been with me for a few years now, that is supposed to be our appointment to at least appoint him at the meeting to make it, and we haven't done it again. And I know you said it should be under the police department, which,
Yeah.
fine. Is there some way, I know it's a Mass GL law, that we have to do it as board of selectmen, but is there a way to get it out, to put it into the police department, so we know?
So it is, I mean, I did appoint him under the authority that I have, as a special doing to enforce those laws. But, I mean, if you
We can
guys,
just add it to an agenda.
if you wanna
don't
vote
even
it,
have
you
to
can
commit
vote it,
for it.
yeah.
No, he
We
did
can
it
just say,
last time.
because he's continuing.
Well, we're gonna say he's doing a good job too, I mean, if it's,
He
just to
knows
be able to,
that.
yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, I know that it's supposed to be under us and.
Yeah, I
But
don't think
if
many
it's
communities do it
not-
that way, they do it under.
You don't get any
Well,
real
that's-
bad press on
Police, yeah.
Facebook, so that must mean you're doing a good
And
job.
that too. Thank you.
So now we're at the harbor master.
Yes.
The next is dispatcher. Do we have all 13 dispatchers or?
So the dispatches is like a fluid
Right,
thing, so we try to hire as many as that apply and that they can cut the mustard, so to speak. It's a tough job.
right.
So I don't know exactly, you can probably find out from the actual, but I don't know how many we have, probably have
Yeah.
10.
Yeah.
Probably have 9 or 10. Yeah, I think it's 9. But which time we hire people and then they don't make it, it's a tough, stressful job. The dispatching is a lot harder than, it's different. Cause you are there, they do it, they might have a working fire at the same time that they're trying to dispatch. Complicated.
The next budget is the VOC, Regional School Assessments. We talked a little bit about that earlier. Are there any further questions? Department of Public Works.
So I think we have an added position here, in the parks. I think everything's filled now, we just have,
37.
we just have another, someone just start, I think this week,
Great.
on Monday. So I think all the positions are filled that are in the budget, and then we're adding another position.
Yeah, I just met the new hire on the highway division, and then,
Oh, okay.
he was with Seager. But, I don't know, I forget what his name.
So it's good, because you get some young guys that are gonna get trained, a lot of these guys don't wanna come up, you know, they
Yeah.
get them sort of learn how to plow and
Yeah,
deal with stuff, so.
Yeah.
And then we just added another position, and, you know, hopefully that'll help a little bit for the parks.
What is a GIS manager?
So that's for like, the mapping.
Oh.
So what I looked into, I talked to some other managers and managers, so it's usually under the engineering department, but it's really somebody that is like a database computer guy, believe it or not. And, it's really like, we're struggling now at trying to access maps and continue and upgrade. We have some grants that we're working with now to enhance the GIS. So anyways, but that's the position that, most of the communities have in office, and that helps maintain the database.
Great. Do we have anybody in mind for that
We
position?
we're gonna put a job description together, and I think that would actually help us get to do like online permitting and all that, it's all connected.
Mhm.
And we just need somebody that has that kind of expertise to manage and to try to take over that. I mean, everything's everything's technology now. So you really need somebody that can manage the thing. Wendy and I can't, manage every day. I've always bringing this and bringing that, there's nobody that can manage it, so I think getting somebody with that kind of technology, that technical experience, would help us. Tremendous.
and we're gonna have at least one vacancy in the DPW that I know of coming up soon.
That's posted,
Yeah. So that's only one though, right?
yeah,
Everything else is.
yeah. See, everything I think is filled now, I think it's just we added a position, if it gets through the town meeting, then I'll post it, I'll ready to go. They posted early, I don't know, they do post it early, it's just hard, even those positions, like, different people come in and go through a whole process to hire them, and then they just, the money thing is tough, what I mean?
So just in the DPW's division, it's 27, not including the clerks.
Correct, yeah.
27.
Well, a lot of people don't understand, like, the people that do the water, they're all part of the DPW, we just have them
Right.
down here because they go in.
Water
they
and
mess
sewer,
them up. Yep.
Any other questions on Department of Public Works?
Just on the cemetery, that's all set too?
Cemetery is, but, we have somebody out that I don't know what's gonna happen with the injury, so,
Alright,
it just happened, I think, last week.
thank you.
So we've been sending help down there.
Helps it, yeah.
Next is the Forestry Division. Highway Division. Snow and Ice Division.
Actually, I had one question, highway division.
Mhm.
From our original 24 budget, we went down in the final recommendation. The department request was 327, went down to 289. Was there a reallocation of resources or something, or?
I think, movement within the department, and people coming in at lower
Right.
positions.
Because that's the replacement?
Yep.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Snow and ice. The motor pool division. Waste collection and disposal, salaries. Cemetery division, salaries. Parks division, salaries. Department of Public Works expenses. Forestry division expenses. Now, do they use a special technology as well in that park and technology general?
And which one?
On page 46.
Oh, you mean like outside vendor? That's, yeah, but so like when we have, different, trees that need to be, addressed, so they're too large or trees, we hire outside vendors.
Oh, okay.
We get a lot of calls and we sort of use that, you know, obviously, trees and all that stuff, you could spend billions on, but, we try to increase it to make sure.
I'd like to go back for a second on waste collection. Page 42.
42?
42, waste collection and disposal.
Mhm.
So the top line went up pretty dramatically from, not so much from the 24 budget. I think that's because we were using part-time in the past, and then
We didn't have them filled. So originally, the department used to have a position and it had 3 positions. And then we went with a director type, like me.
so that's a full-time, one full-time equivalent, and the other 2 is part-time.
That's a part-time, so that one's a part-time, and then there's a full-time that's under that, and then there's one part-time and one part-time that's not filled, that do actually go and follow the trucks.
So there's 2 full-time, a director and a coordinator, and there's 2 part-time
Oh, okay.
inspectors.
So there's 4 people in total, and,
But
But
they're
we
not,
only have
yeah,
one.
we only
We only have 1 inspector right
Just Scott?
no,
it's
he's the
not,
director.
So it's like, I don't know if you know Greg Wells, his father,
Yeah.
and Lonnie's father
Yeah,
used to go around, they watch the trucks on the routes, those are the
And I
part-time
have-
positions. So we have one, we're trying to fill another one.
Saints, yeah.
Yeah, yes, yeah, we're trying to fill another one. Then we have a technology guy that's pretty good, that, we hire a young kid that works in that department.
So, we were on page 46 for forestry division expenses. And then my question was asked and answered. And now we're on page 47, the highway division expenses. I see you went up on street paving, which I know you get a lot of calls for street paving, and a lot of calls for sidewalks and fixing signs, so some of these line items went up from last year, but clearly you need, these things are, you're constantly getting calls for these, because I know.
Things are more expensive too.
Of course.
Right. In chapter 92, right, is also the sidewalks and,
Yeah.
so how did that look compared to last year?
I think it's a similar, I mean, I think it was like, it's in the 600s, like probably, I'm gonna say 680s.
now.
Oh, low 600s now. Used to be, it keeps going down a little bit, and then they sometimes do a supplement. And they'll say, we'll give you extra money to do, you know, this and that.
One thing I did notice when I do my Saugus 500 in the morning after I get my coffee,
Yeah.
you see me on it all the time. There's a ton of street signs that are like tilted, slanted. After the winter, can we just have someone go around town and just fix them up?
Give us a list right away.
You want me to do it?
No, if
I'll
you see
give
it.
you a comprehensive list.
No, but I'm saying, if you
I'd
call
like
some in, it'd be helpful to
to go
have.
up every road.
We could do a little bit of both, I can have them,
Why do you
you
go
know.
rest to use?
We
Yeah.
could
Yeah,
all
but
do
it's,
it,
you
there's a
know,
lot of
'cause
faded
we
ones
do have,
too.
we do have faded ones, but I think the symbols are gonna fade
Yeah.
anyway. But
Yeah,
at
just
least
let
they
me know
look
what
nice
I
with the
look at,
black
yeah.
poles, but when they're tipped over, there's one right near the plaza, Sunnyside or whatever,
Yeah.
that one's tipped over.
Yeah, we'll fix them.
I
We
just-
do a lot of those when they
Yeah,
come,
I
but
know
we'll
the guys do it, but
We'll have
it
them
would
take a
be-
look.
if
Yeah.
we could just,
Yeah,
you
no
know,
worries.
bang them out,
Yeah.
you know, that would be great.
Definitely.
Okay. Right now, we're at snow and ice division expenses.
Oh, one other thing to look into. There was an accident down by Penny Landing. a year ago. It wiped out one of those speed signs.
In the shop,
It is?
yeah, we're waiting for it to be fixed, because those are expensive.
Yeah, I know.
So, we have them, it's in the shop and we fixed, the other one in Central, we had that fixed.
The one that wasn't on.
Yeah, so,
I texted you.
yeah, so now we figured out now, I kinda got involved in it a little more, but the batteries only last a certain amount of time, so now we'll get.
Even though
I
they're
asked-
solar, they have to charge the
I
battery.
asked, yeah, they have to change the battery out, so I asked them to now set up a company, I guess the company's difficult to get responses.
No.
So I asked them to set up like some sort of a thing where they go around, check everything that's electrical, you know, all these different types of
Okay.
things, and then try to, replace anything that needs in maintenance.
Good. Thank you.
Now we're on page 49, we're on street lighting division. How were other new street lights, you replaced over 3,000 of them, correct? How is that all working out?
Pretty good, I mean, I think there's a big savings in it, I think, again, it's like a learning curve with that we have software that monitors those, but having somebody trained in understanding it, this seems to fall into my office with Jeannie, like, at this point, we're trying to fix that and get it back to where it belongs.
Are they all done now?
They're all done.
They're all done.
So, but it's, I mean, they're great, their savings has been phenomenal.
Yeah.
Next is the motor vehicle maintenance division. Waste collection and disposal expenses. When do those contracts come due, for J and
I
M?
think one of them's coming up, this year. The JM, I think we have an option, they just extended an option on it. And then, I think the other one will be up.
So, Wendy, I just wanna make sure I'm not 100% missing this, but some of this is cash basis, right, when you pay invoices? The actuals you
Actual,
take?
yeah.
Yep.
Because if you take the rubbish haul,
Yep.
year to date was 365, I did quick math, it come out to like 1.2, we're at 1.8, but that's just timing of invoices. The actual was 1.5 last year, so you have to assume that's gonna go up at least, 15-20% or whatever, based on
Right.
volume and rates and everything
Yeah.
else.
Correct.
Cemetery division expenses. Parks division expenses. The same thing with this one, I see that we went up on, the repairs and maintenance of playgrounds. And
Yeah.
you see that there's, a lot of people were concerned and they wanted to see upgrades in the playgrounds, so that's a significant increase, which is good, that's what people want to see. And the fields went up from last year as well. Regarding the $2 million that was voted for at town meeting, what's going on with that in terms of plans?
Yeah, we're just putting things together, to have some projects move forward. Once we have a little more information,
Sure,
yeah.
thank you. Any other questions?
He likes the surprise.
Yeah, I know, he clearly
Trying to
didn't
keep
want
it
to tell me yet.
I love the surprise. I'll talk to you offline about it. I know the game, yeah, I know how that
Oh,
works.
if you
But I
say,
wanna know
if you
now.
say you're doing Bristol Park, you'll have 20 people there protesting it, saying that we don't want the park fixed at Bristol Park. you
That's
know what I
right,
mean?
let's leave the slide that I used to get my head on.
For the metal one.
Yeah,
We got $10 million coming down with a 10-wheel dump truck coming down Main Street. A lot of people saying, I don't want them to come down Main Street.
yeah, exactly.
I want the money, but I don't want them to come down
Airlift
Main
it,
Street.
in.
Yeah.
Airlift it, airlift it.
Department of Public Works Capital,
We have a plan, I know we recently appropriated some monies for new vehicles.
Yeah, actually, one of them come in, one of the pickup trucks come in today.
What are we buying?
They're buying the 5 tons.
The
So they-
550s,
The big ones,
F4s?
yeah, the 5
Ford?
ton, no, they're replacing like the YOLO truck.
Okay,
So there's 2 of them, but
good.
believe it or not, they haven't ordered
So
them
of course
last,
they'll be rigged
ordered
up
them
for
last
sand
May.
and-
They were not gonna get them until after the winter's over. It's unbelievable. I mean, knock on wood, we've been okay with the thing, but we have a couple of them that are.
Are there other pieces of equipment that?
Yeah, different
backhoes
ones.
And stuff?
Yeah,
that-
yeah, we have a couple different things, and then we have a list of some stuff that will be coming.
Not that we needed it this year, but how are we with sidewalk pods? I know one of them is a dinosaur.
No,
And
actually,
the
the
other one's
dinosaur
really-
one is actually pretty good.
That's
Yeah,
the one,
yeah.
I talked to one of the
Yeah.
DPW, he's like, I'd rather drive the old one than the new one.
Yeah, So, you know, we have them, I mean, you know, one of them's, I think, in the shop, the one, but I think we've been okay, and they've been fine.
Don't talk about snow. We're on our way to spring.
Stop it.
We're now on page 56, the engineering department.
It's the same thing here, Scott, we got a
Yeah.
position here too.
Yeah, so in other words, that's, I've upped the salary a little bit, trying to maybe attract somebody that's at at an equal level, so that we can get more support. I mean, we have a lot going on with, development and all that. But, you know, I think with a bigger department, it'll attract more people, I think. I mean, people say, well, you go to, like, Wakefield, and they don't have anything close to what we have for development law. I think they have 4 people. So, that way, if we get a GIS person, they'd be in there.
Right, yeah. So we have our assistant engineer open, and we're hiring a new position in the GIS.
Well, right, GIS, but I think the assistant one, I think we're looking at maybe restructuring and look for like another senior, you know what I mean, town engineer type
Makes
thing. And then they can share, if someone goes to the planning board, or, you know what I mean, I guess there's always somebody there that for a succession program too, if somebody leaves.
That's important.
Did you adjust the budget? Last year, we talked about how well it works out with the young adults that do cleanup and stuff, but it's mostly during summer break.
Yeah,
We talked about extending that until like
whatever they want.
late fall or
So we let
whatever.
them do whatever they want. If there's kids that wanna do it, then we've done it in the past. It comes and goes with certain kids that like.
Can we
it.
try to like,
Yeah,
encourage a longer duration, especially if kids maybe, you know, they're going back to, they might be going to local college or something, and they can work.
so a couple of them we've kept on
Yeah.
during college breaks and,
Yeah.
and different things, and others, it just sort
Because
of runs
it does
in
make a
phases.
noticeable difference, I'll
Yeah.
tell you. You go around the park, and when they're not here versus when they're here, it's a huge difference in the appearance.
Well, we're trying to line up the company we've had problems with, to
With
do
the
the
pads,
math.
yeah.
So, which I already just had that conversation, was today, Tuesday, it's today, actually this morning, about making sure that that's lined up, that company's another one that's
Hard to get.
challenging to,
Yeah.
to get them. I said.
They
line
jump
up
all
for
over
the
you when you first hire.
Second week in April or something, yeah. Cause it makes a difference.
Yeah, it does.
Any other questions regarding the engineering department? Facilities maintenance and grounds?
Yeah, so I think we're down one position, electrician in this, so we
Okay.
think it's gonna be challenging to hire somebody because of the pay.
Does it make sense to bump it?
It's a union position, so it. you have to sort of
You ain't
stay in
gonna say
line.
no.
Well, you gotta stay in line with the, then 3 other people there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, different competencies, electrician versus plumber versus whatever, right? I'm just saying, make it easier for you.
Well, I
to
may,
find
if
a
we're not
qualified
able to find, I may just fill it with like another general guy, and then, you know, we can hire him outside, to do like a lot of the electrical work, or what, I mean, when we need it.
Yeah.
It's just nice if you have something, you get something that
Yeah.
needs to get fixed, to have them available, than to have to line up a vendor.
Absolutely, and right there back and call.
Because even when we had somebody, we would have outside vendors do bigger jobs, for sure. You know.
So on page 58, the energy heating, public buildings, and the repair and maintenance heating, HVAC, that
Yeah.
it looks like there's a big increase over some of the prior years.
Mhm.
Is that just because heating has gone up?
No, it's level funded. It's level
It's-
funded. So
it's-
the 24 budget was 250 and 110. We've kept it the same for 25.
I'm just looking at, like, if you look at repairs and maintenance over the other years, 21, 22, 23, and we've only paid so far 6,000. I was just wondering if we were anticipating more services being needed.
Yeah, I think we would, I mean, a lot of the stuff we're doing is, that department comes in with like sort of spreadsheets and et cetera, but we're replacing a lot of, it's like we're doing some stuff at the senior center now. So then you have less maintenance, you know,
Yeah.
you know, and some of them we're gonna, with a green community grant, so
Mm-hmm.
it helps pay for that stuff, and we're, you know, we're trying, I mean, not, you know, so it's hard to budget something like that, cause you don't know if our system is gonna go down, but we, you know, not to repeat myself, but during the pandemic, we used a lot of that money, and we replaced things that we needed to get replaced because it had to do with air quality and they qualified. So we did a ton of work that I think is really beneficial to the taxpayer and the residents. And so now we're trying to target the things that we still have to do and do.
So,
But those are hard things to budget, you just don't know.
I
Like even
understand.
at like the senior center, we're putting in like a dual source unit, like that's the electric, and with gas as well. So all these new with the rebates and whatnot, and we'll see how that runs. It's different than the traditional HVAC system we've got.
Okay. So it's page 59 and 60 go with the other departments. So the next department is page 61, the health department. Any questions with the health department?
No positions there, Scott?
I don't think so, right?
Um,
No, I don't think so.
No, okay.
no, 15 inches.
This should be pretty low, right?
Okay.
The next is the Council of Aging. If there's any questions on the Council of Aging? Veteran Services. The library. Now I'm on page 67, Youth and Recreation. Page 68 is Lobsterman's Landing. Do we have cameras at Lobsterman's Landing?
They do.
What you asked, I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry, do we have cameras at Lobsterman's Landing?
Is it okay down, is everything good down there?
Yeah, good, I just wanna get they put the cameras up and they didn't, I want them hooked onto the same system.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as maintenance wise, I know we got that grant to do an
Yeah, so we
upgrade
did some stuff, yeah, but in general, like, we need, that's part of what we're looking at for capital, is upgrading, we did upgrade some of that
Yeah,
stuff.
especially now what they're doing, the thing down the landing,
Yep,
it'll all be connected together.
yep.
Page 69, Celebrations.
It's the Board of Selectmen's party.
No, I
Yeah.
don't even know why we call them, it's kind of,
You-
those are the markers
Not
for
enough money,
grades,
yeah.
We're
right?
not gonna be doing much with
Not
the,
enough money.
No, but
Those are the, right,
Probably
those
take
are
the
the-
trip.
not with that. Page 70, we're on debt services. And there's some detail on the back. Go all the way to page 71, employee benefits. And you said, Wendy, that you have a conservative estimate. Other insurance, the town manager talked about earlier in his letter. And transfers and other financing sources. Any questions on any of those? Then we move on to the program and operating budget SOAR enterprise fund. Does anybody have any questions on the SOAR enterprise fund? It's pretty similar to the other fund. So-
Yeah, and that'll obviously, we'll make adjustments because we have to look at what the rates and the analysis and all that stuff.
And when do you plan to have that meeting?
Right, so probably right before we go, we usually have that week
it's right
before.
before it goes to town meeting.
Yeah. So we usually try to,
Like May?
yeah, probably right before May, the end of,
April.
right? Yeah. I'll be calling and see if we can scramble everybody.
I know.
It's always 8 o'clock in the morning.
Well, we're always relying on, you know what I mean, thing, and then we're making adjustments, and there's a
Yeah.
third party that does a lot of the work.
You get it.
We want to be timely. And the last budget is the water enterprise fund. Does anybody have any questions? So we've gone through all of the budgets, we've asked our questions. Are there any other questions before we take a vote? And the vote is to pass the budget as recommended by the town manager to the finance committee.
Yeah, before we do that, is there gonna be any plan with, town meeting to continue the progress with the park appropriation?
With the what?
Parks
appropriation.
appropriation, so
Yeah.
that we can, keep things and moving in the pipeline?
Oh, yeah.
I think that would be good.
Yep, no, definitely. Everybody, I think, we'll get some stuff, we have some stuff in the works, and we'll be able to, soon enough, and we'll have sort of some public meetings, I think,
Yeah,
and
when
have
you're,
you guys and everybody talk about it, and bring everybody up to speed and get some input.
Yeah, I think it was great that town meeting voted the $2 million.
Hopefully they'll be, wisdom will wanna do some more.
Hope so.
It's a lot of work, I mean, people, like, where I try to explain, it's, to do a few projects, it's a lot of work, there's a lot of work involved in it, but it's worth it, you can do a couple each year. The pandemic kinda set us back.
Yeah. So I'll make a motion that we, vote to approve the budget, the fiscal 25, operating budget as, recommended by the town manager. No edits and, no modifications.
Okay, and to send it to the finance committee?
And to move forward to the finance committee in accordance with the charter.
Great, and that's seconded by the chair, is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Selectman Chagouini's motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 5-0, thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you all, thank you Wendy
Wendy.
and
Thank
Scott very much for
So
all
we'll
the
get this
tough
together
work.
and then we'll put it up online and make sure everybody gets a copy. We'll just make a
Thank
few
you.
edits. We caught a few typos.
You need a motion to adjourn?
Okay. As long as it's not like a big money change, we're good.
Oh, I need a motion to adjourn,
Oh, so moved.
Yeah, it's a.
and then, that's seconded by the chair, all those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries 5-0.